Hello lovelies, my name is Eric Addish. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing an episode of A Wizard Wonders, which is a series on my channel where I can just ramble about things. I may never bring this topic up again, I might not even form an opinion in this video, but I'm just sort of rambling and putting some of the thoughts that have been in my head onto this platform for you guys to talk about, to give me feedback on, to share your thoughts and ideas as well. So if you want to leave a video response or a comment to this video, please feel free to do so. I definitely encourage it. That's really cute. There's a little bit of family lore in my family, that kookaburras are often the visitation of our ancestors. So that's really cute to see. Hear the kookaburras laughing. Okay. So today I want to talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is superstition. Because this has come up to me because of the difference in opinion, the difference in experience that I've had, and I know the lighting's not best, I'm sorry, I can't fix it, the sun will do what he wants, but working in Wicca or witchcraft, eclectic Wicca spaces, and my experience with voodoo, what limited experience I do have. I'm not an initiate of Wicca or of voodoo, but I do have a certain level of interaction with both of them. And I've always had a deep love. If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you'll know that, for me, I've always felt drawn to both of those paths really deeply, and I have a deep love for the spirits of Wicca and the spirits of voodoo. So, yeah, it's always been, those two systems have always been really important for me. And my experience in both of those spaces has been really, really different. And I think that what it comes down to is the interpretation or the interaction with ideas around superstition. I think that when we talk about superstition in the West, we sort of look down on superstition as silliness. And a lot of the Western superstitions that I know of, we used to say, don't put shoes on the table, don't walk under a ladder, all those sorts of things. And a lot of these just had to do with hygiene and safety. They weren't and they'd always say, oh, it's bad luck. It's well, it's not bad luck, it's just unhygienic or unsafe. So that's where the bad luck comes from. If you put your dirty shoes on the table, of course, that's going to spread bacteria and disease, and therefore people will get sick and die. And and I'm talking in an older period, right? Obviously we have antibacterial spray and stuff like this now. But that these came from genuine concerns. These were really logical things to be thinking about. So a lot of these superstitions in the West really make sense to me. But you look at a lot of the tribal religions, and because we equate superstition with silliness, those tribal religions that are very superstitious, things like voodoo, are often looked down upon. And I think there's an insidious undertone of racism there that sort of comes through when we're talking about superstition. I know that a lot of people sort of interpret modern Wicca or witchcraft as a kind of Neoplatonic thing. So it's all it's almost allegorical or metaphorical, rather than being a literal spiritual interaction. Not all Wiccans are polytheists. And so it's interesting how, within those systems, there's less of a concern about superstition or crossing or curses or all these sorts of things. Whereas, when you look at voodoo, there is, I guess, maybe more belief in curse work and harm and, bad tricks and all those sorts of things that happen. And so it's just been really interesting to see the differences and to see the way that voodoo interacts with what we would call superstition, and the logic behind those superstitions. Because when you're working in a spirit model where the spirits are real and individual and have their free will, of course you would want to have some level of protection for that, or, want to have those measures for working with them or interacting with them. So I think it's really interesting to see that difference, to see that sort of dichotomy of the way that we interact with superstition in Western mystery traditions versus those sort of tribal religions. And I really do think that there is a serious concern there, and that we do need to shift the way that we perceive of tribal religions or superstitious people. Because, quite often those superstitions are founded in fact, in reality. Now, I say all of this with, not being an initiate in either of these systems. I'm not a Wiccan and I'm not a voodooizant. So I can't speak, for the religions or for those traditions. This has just been my interaction with them. But it does lead me to another thing that I want to talk about, which is initiation and validity. So I've seen, it's interesting, I've interacted with a lot of different magical people, and from my experience, initiates do tend to have access to things that non-initiates don't. They seem to be able to accomplish things maybe with greater ease or with greater efficiency than those who are not part of traditions. And I think that's one thing that's really like drawn me to studying with the tradition, is that understanding that my relationships with spirits would be more, I guess, not confident, what's the term I'm looking for? They would be a stronger foundation in the relationship that I'd have with those spirits, and therefore my magic would be more consistent. My relationships would be consistent, and therefore my magic would be more consistent as well. And I think that's where initiation really comes into the idea of magical power. I wish I had them with me, but when I studied with my first eclectic coven, which was the teaching coven, we had like levels or grades, and we were given different colored chords, depending on what grade we were in. And like, this really clicked with my mind, because up until that point, like, I'd done a lot of martial arts, so like every grade you would get a new belt and it would be a different color, so like it registered in my brain as kind of the same thing. And so I always wanted to like achieve that level where I could like wear that gold cord, which was like the high priest role. So there was definitely that work towards a goal and towards that title or that rank that sort of had a certain play in it for me. But I don't think that, initiation solely makes somebody valid. I think as well, like, when we're talking about validity, the idea that comes to mind is something Gordon White says, where he talks about how, like, things can be legitimate, but it doesn't mean they're equivalent. So, like, you could light a pink birthday candle and say the Catholic prayer to Raphael, and he might show up. But that's certainly not equivalent to cracking open the Key of Solomon and summoning Raphael using that text and those procedures. They're not equivalent, but they may both be legitimate. Like I say, though, I think that the consistency in magic, your consistency in your ability to achieve results and have results-driven magic, the consistency behind that really has to do with your consistency with your spirits. And I think that that's the difference, I think, between somebody like me, who sort of has their hands in a lot of pots. I'm like a jack of all trades, but a master of none, because I'm not an initiate into anyone's system. I don't have that basis in one space. I'm sort of all over the shop in that way, because I'm a pop culture magician. Now, I think as well, this term initiation is always a hotly debated one. And, I really enjoyed Thorn Mooney's thoughts. She has them in her book Traditional Wicca, but there's also a video with her thoughts on initiation, or some thoughts on initiation. She doesn't necessarily give her perspective. But she shares some ideas about initiation and what it means, and she's talking about how, like, it talks about the removal from society, a changing in oneself, and then a reintroduction to a group and recognition within that group. And so when you're looking at systems like the Abramelin, which we often describe as like the initiatory rite into Solomonic magic, it's a solitary rite. It's not something that's done in the company of others. It's not about being recognized by other people as an initiate, but being recognized by the spirits and having your spiritual authority recognized through that process of initiation. You're being reintroduced to the spirits, not to people. I am fond of the Abramelin ritual, and it's something that I've always wanted to accomplish. But it's such an ostentatious ritual. I just, I wouldn't want to start and not finish it. So I've never quite started. I've always been a bit apprehensive. I think if I was going to do it, I would definitely do Aaron Leach's course and start with Easter and work through the 6-month course that he offers. So, if you're interested in Abramelin, he's the guy to go to. Now, do I think you need to be initiated to be valid as a magician? No, I don't. I think you can accomplish, a lot of things by yourself and just by, doing things as you would in a sort of chaos magic-y kind of way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it just depends on what it is that you're looking for and what you want to achieve. And for me, I think that a big thing that I've always really felt drawn to, or that I've always wanted to do, or well, not wanted to do, but I guess I feel destined, or it's like my true will or whatever, is that, I'm meant to teach this stuff, and I feel like as though I don't have, see, because it's interesting as well, like, where is the authority important? Is it important to have authority when speaking to other people, or is it important to have that authority when you're speaking to the spirits and trying to accomplish something? Where is the authority important? So because I want to teach, I need to have that, I feel that I need to have that initiation there to prove my authority, or, like, not my authority, like, not that I want to speak down to people or anything, just that I feel that I wouldn't have the right to speak on these traditions without being a part of them, without being a member of them. An outsider talking about it in group can only say so much. And so I've always felt like if I was to teach, I need to go down this path of becoming part of some sort of priesthood and, engaging in that way and becoming a priest of these gods so that I can serve them through teaching, which I feel is what I'm supposed to do, I guess. But yeah, I think I've rambled enough at you guys now, so I might love and leave you. But if you have any thoughts on superstition, racism, initiation, validity, any of these topics that I've talked about, please do leave me a comment, give me a video response, whatever you want to do. I would love to hear from you guys, and until I speak to you next time, I will just say as well that I think I'm just going to try to take some pressure off myself and go back to doing just one video a week. I just can't maintain the 2 videos a week. It's just, I'm just not able to do it. So I'm going to take that pressure off me, and I'm just going to go ahead and try to go for 1 video a week instead of the 2. And if we get 2, that's awesome. But if not, it doesn't make me feel like I'm failing at this if I don't get it done. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in at the end there. But I'll leave you go, and until I speak to you guys next time, I hope that you're all well. Mwah. Bye.